Let's check on the Cadillac. Still drying. Not quite dry yet. I'm going to just show you one more piece that I recently completed that actually I'm going to give away as a Christmas present to one of my friends on Instagram. And he's got a nice Fury Road collection, so I thought, why not send him one? He sent me a lot of stuff. We used to do a lot of trades. And we'll move on to one more piece. This is going to be our next one that we do a patina on. And I'll be making a video on this Dukes of Hazzard Cadillac in the near future. I like to take the ones that are all banged up like this and go ahead and apply the patina on there, so you have some of the original paint showing through, and it really gives you a good guide. You can just picture all these places where the paint is missing as being rust. Alright, back to the business at hand, what you really want to know. First thing we want to do is to put a black wash on here. Our black wash is going to make the car look dirty, and that's important. You want it to look really dirty. It's been sitting in a junkyard probably. Okay, now what we do here, the black, you don't need to put much black in your water. Just a little dab is going to make it black. If you want a lot of black, stick your brush all the way down in the bottom and don't wipe it too much. Just spread it over this. You want to, it doesn't matter if it gets on the windows. You can take a paper towel and wipe the windows off. You want them to look cloudy anyway. So we're going to put the black wash over it. The black wash is going to pick up a lot of details, like where the panels meet. Getting the proper consistency of the paint can be tricky. If you don't, if your lines aren't showing up like you want, the panel lines where the doors close and the hood close and stuff, you probably want to add more black pigment to your water. Actually, I think this should probably be a little blacker. So let's go ahead and dab some of this off. You don't need to dab it all off. This actually dries faster than you would think. And go ahead and add a little bit more black pigment to this water. When I say pigment, I just mean black paint. Okay, I'll take that much. These little containers of paint that I'm using that are not house paint only cost around 50 cents a piece. So they are inexpensive. And they work wonderful. Now hopefully we can get some more pigment this time. A little blacker. There we go. I want to go over the whole car, everything. Even the windows a little bit. That was more than that. You've got the whole car covered in the black. It's good to let it sit there for a couple of minutes and soak in. Now you want to use a surface that you're not worried about either. As you can see, I'm using this plywood that has paint splatters and stuff all over it. Same with your clothes. You don't want to wear nice clothes doing this. So you're going to get paint all over the wood or whatever you're using. I just keep a paper towel with me and kind of control it as I go along. You can really see the details now with this black on there. You see, all we've done so far, we've applied paper, with glue, let it dry, put on our base coat, let that dry. Now we've watered down some black paint and just painted over everything. And it already looks, you know, dirty, dented. We'll have to let this dry a little bit longer. I think this is a great project. It's like you really can't make any mistakes. You know, paint on the windows at this point, and the car was already, you know, I couldn't put it in my collection, it was broken. So this is a good way to take a broken car and make it somewhat valuable to your collection. If you're into, you know, making a junkyard scene or something. To me, it's like an art piece, more valuable than a regular car, at least to me now. We don't want to let it totally dry this way yet. You could let it dry this way, but I think we're going to take a little bit off. Take this paper towel and dab a little bit off, but like I say, there's really no mistakes to be made here. We're all learning and experimenting. You know, you learn more every time you do this. You get more ideas. You develop your technique. I like the way the door is looking so far. Alright, I'm getting impatient. We're going to have to let it sit here and dry for a little while longer. Speaking of being impatient, if you're impatient like me, and you don't want to wait, the best thing to do is to have 4 or 5 projects going on at once, which is very easy if you're a car collector. So while you're waiting for this to dry, I recommend starting a new project or working on several at once. That way you're not just sitting here waiting. Alright, I've been looking over the car while it's drying. We've achieved a lot already. I really like how this door area looks. One area I'm not impressed with is this ruffle in the hood here. It does not extend far enough out to the edge of the fender. So before we go any further, I'm going to put a small piece of paper there and try to bring that out to the edge of the fender, because you need that dark space right there, like there's a hole. Yeah, and it should be easy enough to try to get that, so let's do that before we go any further. And for that, we just go back to the process from the first video. We get our watered down wood glue, which is probably about an 80-20 mix, if anybody's wondering. You don't need a whole lot of glue in there. But you need at least, I'd say at least 20% of this should be glue. 20% of your mixture. Put some glue on there. Right there, I got a little piece of paper here. Use this brush again. Right. Being careful to try to get that ruffle in the hood to extend out to the fender. I think that's a little more believable. Maybe make it a little bit more viewable. Now I've closed it. Well, I do open up a can of worms here. No, I'll get it. Just kidding. Here we go. Yeah, I love mistakes. Sometimes a mistake makes something look even better. I think we'll go with that. Let that dry. Yeah, it's pushed up there. Closer to the edge of the fender. I like that. We'll leave it like that. Unfortunately, we're going to have to let this dry again for a little bit, but I think it's going to be worth it. You know what? Since we're waiting on one Cadillac to dry, let's go ahead and start working on another one. That's the best solution. I hate waiting for something to dry, so let's just start another one. Now with this one, the technique is going to be slightly different because we're not adding any dents to this. We're just going to make it look weathered. So if you want to know more about the dents, that's really more in the first video. So this is more on the weathering, so I'll go ahead and include it. We're still going to use all the same, the same main colors, except we're not going to put down a base coat. Our base coat's already here, and that's the original paint. Actually, our rust is already here as well. Everywhere there's no paint is going to be rust. And to start out, we're going to use our straight paint this time. We don't need to thin it or anything. And for that, we're going to use chestnut. I like to start with the lighter colors first on my patina, and then add the darker colors later. If you put too much dark on, like if you start with the dark and you put too much on, it's unforgiving. If you start with the light, you can just keep darkening that up. But once you've gone too dark, you might have to start over and repaint the whole car. So I like to start with the light color first. And we're going to put the light color of the rust, just filling in the blanks. It's okay if we get some paint on the white, but we're going to try not to. And if you do, you take your finger or paper towel and wipe it off. A little bit's going to get on there is fine. You just want some of this original paint to show through. As much as possible on this one because there's not much of it left. Put too much on in one spot, just wipe it off. This can be time consuming, but I just wanted to show you an example. Instead of having to wait for something to dry, just go ahead and start another project. It's good to keep your life full of projects and stay creative. So here we go. As you can see, I've showed you enough here that you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that to the rest of the body. When we come back to the video, I'll have it all filled in. Alright, the Cadillac we originally started out with is finally dry enough to work on. You can see the hood is looking more like it should there near the fender. Now we're going to go ahead and continue like we did with this Cadillac here and paint the chassis with our flat chestnut color. again, painting the entire chassis. Might as well put some up in here a little bit. Making sure at the same time I like to get the bottom of the wheel wells on some cars. If you get too much on the body, don't worry about it. Just wipe it off with your finger or a rag. Might as well get this one. If you've ever painted a room, I've painted lots of them, I paint everything else the same way. I'll cut it in first by doing all my edges and then fill the center in last. For me, that's just the way I like to do it. Doesn't mean you have to do it that way. Everyone develops their own technique. Keep getting paint in places where I don't want to by being in a little bit of a hurry. Alright. And a lot of the paint's already wore off the bumper. We'll probably have to repaint these bumpers again later. The chrome is still not dry all the way. Probably most of it on my fingers. That's okay, we'll touch that up later. If you want to, you could switch to a larger brush at this point after you got the edges tight, all the small areas and hard to reach places cut in. I didn't want to get so much paint on the body, so I'm going to dip my brush in some water and come back and rinse these spots off. Maybe take a paper towel and dab them. Another reason I like to use this plywood is you can dab your brush on the plywood and help dry your brush out a little bit if you got too much stuff on it. Try to get as much off of there as you can. Okay, now go ahead and get this bottom done. Switch to a larger brush in this case just to show you it is a lot faster, but you probably already know that. Now on the other Cadillac, we had a chrome chassis, so I left the transfer case and bell housing and stuff like that unpainted so we could put a wash on it. I'll show you that now. I left that area of the engine without the rust, and we're going to go ahead and put a black wash over that. And probably all the other chrome spots. Go ahead and do that while the chassis is drying on the white Cadillac hardtop. Got our brush. We got our black wash still out because we're going to keep using that. And dab this into the engine area. Spread it around a little bit. Might as well do this area too. Alright, that's going to give it a little dirtiness look. Dab it around in there. Might as well just do the whole thing. It's fun to experiment with it. Get different results all the time. Helps develop your technique. Okay. Let it moving it around like this. Keeps it from puddling or anything. Set it back down here and let it dry. Alright. Now, let's go ahead and get our brush cleaned out. I'm going to use a smaller brush this time. Start adding some of the detail work in on the white Cadillac from the damage. I always try to picture in my mind where the paint would have probably popped off, the metal and the crash. Go in there and darken those areas first. It helps to take and get you a picture of some rust. A rusted car sitting somewhere in a junkyard. Find a picture on Google somewhere and Instagram. And look at that while you're doing this. Can help a lot. Really didn't get that buckled in look on the roof that I wanted, but we're just going to go with this instead. You can always take more time and get a better look. See, adding in those lines where the paint would have came off after the car was in a collision. At least that's the idea. A little bit too much in a couple of spots, but try to lighten that up with paper. If you don't like something with this, it's pretty forgiving. You just wipe it off. Go for it again. Get it where you want it. Sometimes you really just got to put it on there and take your finger and push it into the areas where you want it. Or at least that's what I do. Or you could use a little piece of a sponge. You know, if you want to do this on a larger scale car first, it might be easier for you. I find it a lot more challenging to do it on the smaller scale because that's what I collect, that's what I'm doing. Once you get so many cars, they do start to take up a lot of space. So over the years, I've had larger scale cars, lots of 1/18 scale cars, but I've pretty much gotten rid of them all because they take up so much space. Alright, we're getting some areas shaded in there. Alright. So far, we've just painted our chassis, taken the chestnut color, putting it on some of our ripples to simulate the paint has come off in those areas and got down to the bare metal. Now, let's see, let's assume the car probably has some other spots that are rusting besides those areas just because of age, or maybe it was starting to wear and tear. Let's get around the quarter panels and stuff now a little bit. I use my fingers a lot to manipulate this paint or a piece of tissue or something. You do want to kind of blend it. You don't want to put it on so straight that it's just splotchy and globbed on. You can at first, but then come back and wipe it off and blend it in. And I'm going to put some on around the bottom of the car. In spots where I think it might be rusty. Maybe some spots up here. Maybe some rust. Definitely up here. Alright. Maybe around the back of the trunk deck. The corners. Be some rust. Use your imagination. See, there's a nice body line right there. I think water probably would run down that a lot, so I'm thinking maybe I should put a line there. Wipe it down. Let me do that on the other side. Alright, I like that. Same with the door trim. Water probably would sit there and dry and cause it to rust more. So maybe put some there. Maybe in this corner. Takes a while to dry. The top of this trim starting to decay. You can see, put some rust there. I think some spots along the bottom. All right, that's pretty good. I've wiped a lot of paint off the bottom by not letting it dry, but that's no problem. We'll touch that up later as well. Now, the next step, and an important step in this, is to take a stiff brush, make sure it's pretty clean from the last color you used. Now we're going to switch to a new color. We're going to switch to burnt umber. See how it's starting to look as that dries. Okay. Now the burnt umber this time, it's a flat. All these are flat. We're going to go to the burnt umber. What I do is I just take the lid right off, put a little bit of the color right in the cap, and I have my palette right there. Now you want to keep you a paper towel, or you can dab it on your plywood, but then you're going to have paint everywhere, so I'm going to use the paper towel. You don't want to put a lot of paint on your brush. You want to dab it in there just gently. Don't want to cover all of it. Just gently. And then you want to do a test dab on the plywood or on the paper towel to where it just leaves a little bit of a stippling effect. You don't want to put this chestnut on heavy. I'm going to show you on the paper towel. Try to, just gentle. so you get a stipple, you know, just want to touch it a little bit. Okay, we're going to take that chestnut color and add this burnt umber on top, just gently. You could take a needle and do this if you wanted, or a toothpick. If you put it on too heavily, you can go back with the other color and adjust it some. This whole area. You can see do another little bit more color on here. I'm just going to use the plywood. So I get it just so lightly. Once you start adding this color, the burnt umber, over top of the chestnut, you really start to get the effect of rust. Okay. See where I've just gently dabbed it with these two colors over the primer. We're starting to get that rusty look just by doing that. So black area here. I don't like that black area. Let's put some of our other color there. Get rid of that black spot. Let's get rid of this black spot. I'm doing this a little bit faster than we should be, just to... That's looking better. Nice. See the rust effect with the crumpled up paper and our two colors and the stiff brush. We're starting to get it. As I look at a little bit closer here, the roof, I can kind of see where the paper was glued down. Yeah, I think I should try to make that look like a more rusted area, so that will disappear. Alright, that's where the paper was bothering me. Now we've just made that area more rusty. And we'll go back with our burnt umber. You don't have to wait for these two colors to dry to blend them together. That's another great thing about this. Now you just want to put your burnt umber in there. And there you have kind of camouflaged the paper seam a little bit. A little bit's not good enough. We want to camouflage it totally. You can keep layering this paint up and doing the same effect over top of it and build up paint, and just makes the aging effect look like it's been aged longer. I think we need to spread. One thing leads to another. We should put a little bit more over here, there. Water just sits in these spots. Blend them out a little bit. Okay. Put our burnt umber in there again. I made that line just too obvious. Try to blend that in a little. Alright, I kind of like that. Roof looks pretty good. The door definitely looks good there. I think we should take a little bit of black paint and put in this crevice here. Same with the black paint, and just pour that right in the top of the bottle. And just a little tiny bit. To look like we have a space or a gap here. Alright, that looks better. Let's see. Alright, the more we mess with this, I think might go too far if we keep messing with it. We're almost at a point where it's good enough. A little bit more in this area. All right. I'm kind of excited to see if any of you guys try this. If you do, take pictures and send them to me on Instagram. I'll gladly post them. I'm easy to find at Diecast Car Guy for Life. I'll try to get a link or put it on a piece of paper in one of our next videos. We can still work on this and do some more detailing. But I think this video is long enough for you to get the idea. I'm going to do some more stuff to it later, but we'll take a break from there. See how the wheel was broken. Kind of hangs down. I'm going to make that part of how it looks, I think, when we're done. Put it on a stack of cars and have this wheel dangling down. Well, if you guys like this video and you find any of this information useful and want to see some of my future projects, go ahead and subscribe and hit like. Hope you guys have a great evening or afternoon wherever you are. Keep on creating. Alright, here's what it looks like sitting on the stack of cars that I showed you in the first video. All right. If you like what you see here, subscribe and see more. I like making these videos and showing you how to do this. If you have any questions or comments or other tricks or tips that you'd like to share, please leave them. Hope you enjoyed.